Good morning, everyone. I can't imagine a better way to start the day than with all of our community trusted messengers across the state, focused on keeping families safer. We'll give it just a few minutes to, well, maybe not quite minutes, but give it a little bit here to let folks have the opportunity to click through that link before we get started today. We're super excited to have today's conversation, but certainly also very much, at least I know personally, have on my mind, the families and first responders and so many others that are responding to events in other parts of the nation, especially in Florida, as sort of all eyes are there. So appreciate that folks are taking the time to be with us today. All right. And we'll go ahead and start with a little bit of housekeeping. I see we've already got a question in the chat. As we always do, this sort of information and recording will be made available to you all after the briefing. And then, of course, happy to send along and attach the slides, which will have lots of really great information and links along the way. So to get us started, my name is Sonya Harris. I am one of the team members on the Listos California team, and so excited to be here with you today. We've got sort of scheduled a 1-hour briefing, but I think generally we move a little bit quicker so we can have some time at the end for questions. So again, very much appreciate that you all are taking the time here today, really to help us, share a little bit more specifically about the work Listos California is doing, and to hear from some of our colleagues at the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. So as you can tell, today's briefing is really focused on, how do we be prepared in those moments that aren't always predictable, but certainly California is high risk for, as our history would tell us, which is earthquakes. So we'll go through a little bit of information about sort of the science and technology related to earthquakes today. We'll also share a little bit about some exciting activities that we'll have next week that we hope you can join in on. And of course, all of the new goodies that the team has cooked up for you all, to use as you're doing your work out in the community and really looking for those incredibly important conversations on preparedness to keep our Californians safer. So first up here is, an incredible human that's doing great work at OES. I had a chance, I think, to first meet him in the hallways, and he was asking me if I had the app, and so he'll tell you a little bit more about that. But Jose, welcome this morning. Please tell us more about earthquakes in California.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Sonia, for having me. And thank you to all of you who are here. I can't tell you, I am a little biased, but I do think that earthquake preparedness is one of the most important things that we can do and provide to our communities statewide. After all, you will hear me saying this probably a few times today. We live in earthquake country. As Sonia has mentioned, I'm Jose Lara. I'm the Seismic Hazards Branch Chief here at Cal OES, and I oversee a variety of programs that revolve around earthquake, tsunami, and volcano, and of course, the earthquake early warning system here in California. If you go to the next front line, Daniel, I want to first of all talk to you about California and where we live. We all know that all up and down California, there is a fairly active risk to all of us with the earthquake hazards, but not just earthquakes, really also tsunamis all up and down the coast. Today, we're going to be focused strictly on earthquakes, however, and I'm going to kind of impart upon you a little bit of the science behind earthquakes and really our risk profile as it comes to California. So you all have heard that the Bay Area and really the Southern California region are hotbeds for faults and fault systems that can produce fairly large earthquakes. And as such, we want to make sure that those areas in particular have a heightened awareness of what to do during earthquakes. And as you can see from the slide, that we have about a 60% chance of a magnitude 6.7 earthquake hitting the Los Angeles region in the next, say, 30 years. Of course, we have 72% area or chance, I should say, of a 6.7 magnitude hitting the San Francisco Bay region. And I want to talk to you about what that means, right? We can't predict earthquakes at this time. There may be a future where we can, but not today and not tomorrow. And so when we talk about the earthquake risk in California, we always talk about probabilities, right? And percentages. So we obviously have a fairly large chance of a major earthquake in California between the two major regions. But that's not to say that we can't have, an earthquake, a large earthquake, all up and down the San Andreas fault and the over 15,000 active faults that California actually has right now that are active, right? So I want to make sure that even though some of you on the call may not live in an area that has, a really big red line going across it, that does not mean that your risk is low. It just means that your risk may not be extremely high. But you don't need to live right on top or very near a fault to have risk associated with earthquakes, right? You could be 50 miles away and still have pretty significant impacts from a major earthquake that can happen. Even those in Sacramento, whereby we're as safe as we can be in California, still have a fairly moderate risk for the consequences and impacts of an earthquake. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that when we talk earthquakes, everything about our life is impacted. All buildings, water conveyance, our dam systems, our levee system, our bridges, our roads, every basic thing that we take for granted as far as our infrastructure will be impacted in some fashion. But that is not the reason I don't want anybody to be scared. It just gives us the information that we truly need to empower ourselves and get better prepared for the eventuality of an earthquake, which is a very real possibility in California. Daniel, next slide, please. So let's look back before we start looking forward on the earthquake risk. As you all probably by now know, this is a big year for anniversaries for a variety of earthquakes, everything from Loma Prieta, Northridge, Napa earthquake has pretty significant anniversaries this year. Today, we'll be briefly talking about the Loma Prieta earthquake that happened 35 years ago. Many of you that do live in the Bay Area will probably have some memory of it. In fact, one of our managers, one of my colleagues here, actually was living in Oakland during that time. It has a very vivid memory of it, even though he was only about 6 years old during the time. And so it still really lives in our memory. And it really kind of allows people to really be incentivized to better prepare themselves, because this was a pretty consequential earthquake for the Bay Area. Obviously, Loma Prieta was just outside of Santa Cruz area and reached all the way into San Francisco, right? 56 miles away, actually. So it's not just, we don't always just have to worry about the one big earthquake that's going to happen. I want people to start getting into a frame of mind that it's the first main shock that will be followed by a series of aftershocks, and well over 20 weeks in a week, or 20 aftershocks in a week following that are above a 4.0. And while these are moderate sized earthquakes, after a fairly large earthquake, people have a little bit more of a trauma that's associated with the earthquakes that have occurred in the region. And so it's important to remind everybody that earthquakes are followed by earthquakes if they are large enough, and that is a perfectly normal course of action for earthquakes. For Loma Prieta in particular, we did have 63 souls that perished and thousands of injuries. And I really want to talk about the injuries because that will be a significant aspect of how we ask people to prepare themselves for earthquakes. I think the most important thing to remember about Loma Prieta is that it serves as a constant reminder that we live in earthquake country, and that's why the time to prepare for said earthquake is now. It is today. It is better to be prepared than to be sorry that you don't have the preparedness that you should have had, done before a major earthquake. So, Daniel, next slide, please. Let's talk about preparedness, right? What are the things that you can do to prepare for an earthquake? And I always tell people that most of the injuries that occur during an earthquake are actually not caused by infrastructure that is falling down. So it's not a house that is crumbling. It's not a building. It's not usually a bridge that causes the thousands and thousands of injuries. It's actually falling furniture and objects that are in and around your house or your place of work. And so we give you the example of Northridge, where over 55% of all the injuries that happen, cuts on your feet, you break an ankle, are usually caused by, falling furniture. And so we want to make sure that we talk about what the best thing that you can do to be earthquake prepared is actually to secure your space. And by that, I mean, you need to identify the hazards that could potentially happen or could be in your house. And that is the cabinet that is not braced, that could fall upon you, that has glass, that TV that is only on a nightstand, that's a 55-inch that could potentially fall over. It's making sure that you have secured all of your mirrors, the glasses that you have that are decorative in nature on your walls. That's really what causes a lot of the injuries that will happen. And I also want to point out that less than 1% of injuries are caused by building damage. And that is because California has such a strong code enforcement and codes that are really earthquake resilient. We don't expect that during a moderate to large earthquake that our buildings are going to collapse. We actually design here in California for what's called life safety, which essentially means that we design our buildings and our homes to be resilient to earthquakes, which will mean that we expect that most people will be able to walk out of a building that may be, in fact, that may have suffered an earthquake at that time. And so we want to make sure we remind everybody, and that is a key message for everybody to push out, is that building codes in California are rather advanced, and we expect that everyone's going to be able to walk out the building. But when the best thing that they can really do is secure their space, right? I think this group of all people already understands that we have to plan for a disaster, and that requires you to build an emergency plan with you and your family and decide how you're going to communicate, building emergency supplies up, whether that's a stay box or a go bag, have all your documentation, insurance coverage at the ready to make sure that you're better able to rebuild after an earthquake. And of course, the most important thing that you can do, and the most important message that if you take one thing away from here, I want you to remember this. The best thing anyone can do during an earthquake here in California is to drop wherever you're at as soon as you feel shaking, drop, cover, and hold on. And we have these great images right here that really kind of paint the picture of what people can do and should do, right? This has been greatly studied by research institutions to be the best thing that one can do to minimize injuries during shaking at your location. So, it's a key message point for earthquakes to know what to do during shaking. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Great California Shakeout drill that will be happening next week. I don't want to get ahead of it. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Great California Shakeout tour that will be happening next week here in California. And, the first thing is we want to bring preparedness to everybody all along California. And so CalOS will be hosting a tour that will be focused on providing this life safety messaging on earthquake preparedness. But it's not just that. It's also giving people the opportunity to experience a strong earthquake so that they have a better understanding of why it's so important to drop, cover, and hold on, and why you need to be prepared. This simulator gives you an actual experience of a 7.0 in shaking intensity, which essentially means it rocks back and forth so hard and fast that honestly, we don't even allow people to stand inside of it while it is engaged. And that is because you will, one way or another, find yourself on the ground. And it really gives people a great visual of an understanding of why you can't walk your way during an earthquake or run, because the ground is so unsteady. You will end up injuring yourself and actually put yourself in a worse spot than you were before had you just drop, cover, and hold on. So during this tour, we're going to have 3 stops. We're going to start with San Diego on October 14th at UC San Diego to bring that preparedness message to our young folks, which have a tendency to be a little less prepared than those than those that are a little bit older. We want to make sure that they get a better experience, right? We also have college students that come from all over California and want to make sure that even though you may not have lived in earthquake country before, that one that is at least strongly in our forefront, we want to make sure that they have an understanding that they live in earthquake country now. So we're going to be out there at the crack of dawn, talking to not only the media to make sure we get the message out to get people to come from all over, but also to be able to provide that message at UC San Diego. We're going to go on to the next stop, which is the city of LA. We're going to be at Homeboy Industries to provide this key messaging to to the city of LA, particularly the population that is served by Homeboy Industries. It's a great group of people. We ask people to promote it. It's a public event. All these are public events. We want to make sure that we are able to talk to as many people as we can. We will finalize the CalOS Great California Shakeout Tour in Sacramento at CSU Sacramento, where we'll be doing that same messaging with our young folks. Last but not least, this whole tour really leads up to one thing, which is the Great California Shakeout, which will be occurring on Thursday, October 17th at 10:17. And obviously that is done on purpose, 10:17 at 10:17 a.m. And the Great Shakeout is actually a drill that started in Southern California that gives everybody the opportunity to participate in a drill as a community. And that is a very important aspect of the Great California Shakeout. We want people to practice once a year at the very, very bare minimum, and to do it together, because we find that when people organize, their community or whatever, their work, their home, and do it in unison, we find that the muscle memory is actually a lot stronger. And so we have gone through great lengths to actually get as many people to participate as possible. We have well over 9.6 million Californians that are already registered today, and we hope to be crossing the 10 million, 11 million threshold within the next week. But the question becomes, how do I participate in the Great California Shakeout? Well, it's really quite easy. If you were to go to shakeout.org, you'll be able to register yourself, but also your family or your workplace, and be counted and get earthquake updates and resources sent to you that would allow you and your family or your organization to have better resources for earthquake preparedness. We ask people to share this widely. We want as many people to participate with us as possible. Let's go to the next slide, Daniel. I want to talk real quick about myth busting, right? There is a lot of what I called termed out guidance that people have a strong memory of. And, I'll tell you my personal experience. I was actually born and raised in Mexico, came here to the United States when I was 9 years old. And I remember vividly my training for earthquakes was get out, run like heck, right? And that's mainly due to the building codes that were present in my hometown where I was growing up. And so, because we do have a big immigrant community, we want to make sure that we are training people and educating them that in California, the building codes, as we mentioned, are so advanced that we do expect that our buildings will actually be fine. They're going to be upright, and so we want to make sure that everybody understands that in California, we don't want you to rush out of a building. We don't want you to run. We want you to stay in place, drop, cover, and hold on. That is the safest thing you can do here in California. The other thing I wanted to talk about is there was at one point, decades ago, this is like 3 or 4 decades ago, guidance that we asked people to actually go underneath a doorway, as that is a stronger part of the structure as other parts of the house. But that actually is only applicable to Adobe or to buildings that are Adobe based, right? Whereby that arch did provide a stronger part of the house. But as you all know, most people don't live in Adobe houses. And right now, really a doorway is no more stronger than the rest of your house, all throughout California. So we ask people to really push the message that you don't want to be under a doorway. You don't want to rush out of the house. Here in California, with our building codes, you want to drop, cover, and hold on. Daniel? Now let's talk about, how the best, or what's the best way to get prepared. California is really a leader in the nation, in the world, on earthquake preparedness. And this is really kind of shown by the earthquake early warning system, which is California's system to deliver early warning to all Californians. And as you probably already know, this is the first in the nation system that California really led on, and it's designed to do more than just send out earthquake early warning alerts to individuals, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the system has been in place since 2019, and it has by now delivered well over 8 million alerts to Californians throughout, and that has given them an opportunity to take protective actions such as drop cover and holding on, right? Just to give you some examples of what's been going on in the last probably 2 or 3 months alone, we believe that we know that we have sent out well over 8 million alerts because of the earthquake activity that we've had in Southern California. And this has been a great success for us. We know that the system works. We know that we are now able to very quickly detect an earthquake when it occurs. And through the speed of technology, we are able to deliver alerts within seconds to the people that need it the most, but also the people that will be in the area that will be impacted by such shaking. Sometimes we are able to deliver an alert with up to like 20, 30, and even 40 seconds before the shaking arrives, depending on the intensity of the earthquake. And I can't tell you that is just great news. We believe that this is a life safety system that at some point during a larger scale earthquake will lead to lives being truly saved. And that's why it's so important for everybody to, if you don't have the MyShake app, to download the MyShake app today. Daniel, next slide. The MyShake app is the state's a mobile app that will deliver the actual earthquake early warning alert to your mobile phone. And we are available both in Android and in Apple phones. Download the MyShake app. It's free of charge. It's available in, I believe, 6 different languages the top 6 languages in California. And, I can't tell you enough about the feedback that we have received from the community on how amazed they are that we're able to even deliver this alert. This has been a great partnership with our academic partners all throughout the state and the USGS, because the California Earthquake Early Warning System is ultimately powered by Shake Alert, which you all probably have heard of. So it's a great partnership amongst a lot of government agencies and academic partners. The best way for you to be able to download the MyShake app is to go to the earthquake.ca.gov website, and you'll be able to very quickly click a link that will allow you to download the MyShake app on the App Store or the Google Play Store. One thing that I think is important to cover is oftentimes when we see that an earthquake has occurred, questions always arise that essentially says, hey, look, I was sitting here with my phone and my friend over here received an alert, but I did not. So what's going on? Why didn't the system work for me? And one thing that I always tell people is, if you have the MyShake app and you have shared your location with us, we will deliver an alert wherever you may be in California, Washington, or Oregon. But if you don't have the MyShake app, we can't deliver an alert to you, right? But there's also one more key step that I want to make sure that I push out to all of you guys so that you guys can talk about it with your communities, and that is wireless emergency alerts. It is critically important that wireless emergency alerts or emergency alerts for iPhone are enabled on your phone. And we see a lot of times when people don't receive the earthquake early warning alert, it has a lot to do with the fact that they've actually disabled the alerts that are supposed to be coming to their phone. So I want everybody to personally check their phones right now. Go to the settings app and go under the notifications and verify that all your emergency alerts are enabled, as well as make sure that if you have an iPhone, that you have enabled the local awareness button, because that allows the phone to be able to deliver earthquake early warning alerts to you, amongst other alerts from your local governments. I can't tell you how important that is. Go ahead and check those wireless emergency alerts. Daniel, I think I have one more, or I think that's the last one. If I'm going to leave you with 3 things to remember, okay? The first thing that I always tell people is know what to do during an earthquake. Drop, cover, and hold on. Download the MyShake app. Gives you earthquake early warning anywhere in California. And last but not least, make sure that your wireless emergency alerts are enabled. Thank you for your time. I'll be sticking around here for questions later. And I can't tell you how important your work is. Ultimately, preparedness and all these efforts has to be by the community, for the community, and you are the community. So thank you.
Thanks, Jose. And I already see some good questions coming into the app. So we'll do what we can to answer some of those either in chat or, we'll ask Jose to answer some of those live here in a few moments as well. So if we move to this next slide here, this should look familiar if you have been on any of our other briefings for Listos or wildfires, or for some of our summer content. We really just want to start sort of with sharing a little bit of the insights and inspiration as to why are you getting some of these new seasonal campaign materials? As Jose, sort of worked through, science in California is leading in so many places, but yet earthquakes are still not predictable as we sit today. But that technology advance that he talked about, that early earthquake warning system, really does provide those seconds that can help Californians take those 3 easy steps: drop, cover, and hold on, to hopefully save lives in some instances. Obviously, if there's those large pieces of furniture that he was talking about, and at least to stay safer. He also mentioned some of those myths on best practices, some of that maybe dated sort of information or information that you might have gotten, from other places in the country. And so we really want to make sure to sort of continue to focus on these three key messages, drop, cover, and hold on, to make it simple for folks to remember, because in that moment, that could be sort of the thing that, again, keeps them from injury. And last but not least, we know through our campaign research that Californians are ready to do their part, but they really often just need to know, where to start and the resources that are available to them. And in some of our more recent sort of conversations with Californians, we're also learning about their perceptions around time and money. That sort of this idea that it takes more than a week to get prepared for a disaster. Obviously, depending on where you live, that might look differently for some of those thoughts, and that it costs a lot of money. So I think, as we continue, to plan for next year, and certainly in the coming months, those are some of the places that we really want to stay focused on, is a lot of that myth busting. If we move to the next slide here, we'll show you just a little bit of the creative strategy, behind some of the content that you are getting today and can use, obviously, well, sort of into the next several months as well. But really clear, informative, and relatable. That's kind of been our approach all year with this seasonal content, warm and direct to the point. You'll also notice that a lot of the colors that we're using also tie back to some of the sort of website changes that we've made for ready.ca.gov, so that it's easy for you all to find stuff, kind of a common wayfinding system for our CBOs, but community-based organizations, but also to kind of help pull some of those threads together. So, all of our Listos content, Listos California content, is looking coherent. And last but not least, really, as we have focused on all year, sort of this idea of signing up for alerts, knowing when to take action is so important. And of course, these three key actions for when shaking might happen, whether that's in the moment, in the actual earthquake, or during aftershocks. I saw a question about that, I think, coming through too. So what did our team build? Much like we have been doing over the course of the year, and we're so grateful to the way each of you are really taking part in sort of these seasonal moments. More than 2,000 folks have already sort of logged in to our social toolkit pages and pulled stuff down. It's a really easy to use platform once you get in there, so you can just pre-program these different posts and things into your own social media channels. And of course, if you need help, feel free to give a shout to our team. We're always here to help provide technical assistance. And so just a preview of some of that content here, some of those tips that Jose was talking about. And again, a really sort of color and word usage because of, sort of the directness that we really want to convey. In addition to kind of some of these new seasonal pieces of content, we really also wanted to sort of give some thought prompters and ideas for ways that you can help. Jose talked you through the Great Shakeout. If we move to the next slide, there's sort of 3 ideas just to get you started on how you might be able to help. But say you have a few minutes today, sending a message to your network about October 17th and helping them be prepared, and maybe take part in schedule, supporting the Great Shakeout, whether that's an e-newsletter or, a message to your own team, social media groups, I know WhatsApp, or for me, Kakao, talk, chat groups. All great places to kind of, give that little bit of information on the 35th anniversary of Loma Prieta, and, get people to kind of think about and use this moment. Creating your own mini simulation. I know I feel like sometimes I'm in meetings at all hours of all things, but, pausing either during your event while you're, you might be on stage, or might be hosting a meeting, to really say, hey, the Great Shakeout is happening now. Does everyone know what to do? I sort of feel sorry for some of my friends because being in in all of this space. I feel like I'm the unofficial focus group sort of maker, and, you know, asking, what would you do in an earthquake? And so many folks saying, you know, go to the doorway, and really just focusing on, you know, drop, cover, and hold on. That's all you need to remember. And last but not least, just another idea on ways that you can support our work and lift up and amplify the messages that Jose was really sharing is obviously, as you always do, going to Listos California's resource hub and pulling down either some of our new campaign material, you know, or the incredible evergreen materials that we spent last year building, you know, one-page fact sheets, quick guides, and so on. For those of you that have come, I wonder if I could do this. If you went, you knew and have a new love of Mentimeter, I think. But I'm going to try this live, and hopefully the team doesn't get angry with me, but raise your hand if you came to a summit. There should be a button. So I just want like unofficial query of how many summit goers do I have in the room. Okay, I see the number. It's going up. It's like that little Mentimeter like thumbs up. I love it. Oh my gosh, 40 of you, more than 40 of you. Wow. Thank you. Feel free to put your hand down so we can figure out the questions later. Well, in case you missed it, it seems like a few of you didn't get in on the fun, but that's okay because there's always more to come. In the last 2 months, we have been able to host in 9 different cities across California, regional disaster ready summits. And so we really took your feedback from last year. We also did this in other cities last year. So you know, how do we bring together emergency response leaders, our community leaders, promotoras, faith leaders, all the people that are interested in keeping their community safer together, and learn together, discover resources together, make those really quality connections. Incredible that you know, our participants at the end of each summit recorded over 1,300 new connections made across these you know, really important conversations and opportunities to take home tools, practical tools, and build resilience, and have a little fun. For those of you that raise your hand, please be on the lookout. We will have a survey that's headed your way just to make sure that we've taken and learned all that we can from that investment that we're making, and really that long-term resilience building. And of course, if you didn't have a chance to make it, we'll be putting all of the materials on listoscalifornia.org. So we curated a really incredible game that you can take and use in your own community, much like we did last year. So look forward to your feedback if you didn't have a chance to join us for those summits. We were joined by also incredible community leaders, Senator Durazo and Ashby are pictured here, a couple of our women leaders in the state legislature, County Board of Supervisor Beldia Ramos came, and so many others. So just, you know, the warm welcome that we got from those hometowns, you know, we certainly also very much appreciate. Next on our list of some other Listos California resources, for those of you that might have come to our first of its kind convening earlier this year, we asked you to provide some feedback on some core materials, including the Disaster Ready Guide. So our number one, what I would say kind of core resource for Listos California, it's now new and improved at 20 pages. So we shaved off a few pages to make it easier for you all to print at home, because we know sometimes you do that as you're preparing for community events, and of course also better for us to print professionally to get out to you, for those of you that are Listos grantees. And we added some more sort of the quick tips for extreme heat, just really knowing that that continues to be a focus for us, especially here, you know, in the Sacramento region. The last several days, just to have heat in October has been, you know, so surprising, and appreciate all of you stepping up and sharing sort of our rapid response materials that we've been putting out to try to lift up some of those safety tips. And so, you know, we encourage you to take a look at our guide, and you know, really taking away kind of that red bar across the top. You know, hopefully folks, you know, Californians keeping that in a nice, safe place so that you know, they can have it if they need it in that moment. Let's see. And Last but not least, as always, we have to give a shout out to the incredible resources that we have been able to build along the way with you. As Jose said, that for community by community material, our alert web page continues to be refreshed. Our team regularly checks that page to make sure that as locals might be making changes to their alert system, that we're keeping up with that. Obviously we hear from locals on occasion, but sometimes we know that they're busy as well. So we've got our own manual quality assurance process in place for that. So please, use the Listos California resource where you can just drop in your zip code and find your local alerts. And those would be for any kind of disaster locally, and in addition to some of the earthquake related alerts that Jose just went over. Of course, our social media toolkits, lots of different evergreen resources. And last but not least, we've gotten a lot of questions lately around kids and youth materials. And so we know when you're at community events or, at presentations or out and about, those precious moments with the parents, we can capitalize, or caregivers. How do we keep sort of the conversation with Abuela going while those kids are keeping busy doing some of those activities. So please continue to use and download all of our resources and let us know how they're going. If there are particular pieces that, that are working incredibly, in the community, let us know. We want to know what's working and maybe what's not, how we can improve, especially as we go into planning content for next year. So last but not least, we'll save some time here for questions. As always, feel free to send them to hello@listoscalifornia.org year round as you have them. But let's see, Jose, what can we tackle here? Okay, here we go. Here's the first one for you. Can you talk about what to tell seniors to do when they're outside and an earthquake occurs?
The guidance actually does not change much, whether you're outside or inside a building. We really do want to make sure that the message hits home that the safest thing to do at any place is to drop, cover, hold on right where you're at. We find that through a lot of research that has already been done, that is the safest thing you can do regardless. Now, here's the thing. If you do have access and functional needs and you are, you utilize a wheelchair, the best thing you can do at that point is lock, cover, and still hold on.
Great. Kind of along those lines, more situation-specific questions. John wants to know more about evacuating after the shaking stops. It sounds like he's been advised to kind of stay put until someone else says, falling things are no longer a concern. But do you have some advice for us on that, Jose?
Yeah, absolutely. We do want to make sure that you take a little bit of time after you've dropped, covered, and hold on to really kind of assess the risks that are now present in your location, whether that be at home or at work. We ask everybody to take a second to make sure that the shaking has stopped, and then after that, assess for hazards before you do anything else. Your house will likely have changed in some fashion, right? Or your work. And we want to make sure that we don't get injured, due to the consequence of that particular earthquake. So it's always good to just have situational awareness of your surroundings after an earthquake.
Great. Moving on to another question, again, a little bit situational, but do you have any thoughts, best practices, tips about conducting earthquake drills in the workplace?
Absolutely. You know what? I always like to tell people that if you do want more information on how to develop and or run a drill, I tell people to go to earthquakecountrylliance.org, which has a ton of resources for you as to how to develop a drill and or what to do to better prepare your organization for earthquakes. That's earthquakecountrylliance.org, or you can also go to shakeout.org and find a lot of the same resources there. That's really the best thing you can do. We want people to be able to not only run their own drills, so we make it as easy as possible for you to be able to do so.
Great, thanks, Jose. Maybe if the team can go back a few slides, I think that will help facilitate this next question on the screenshots with the different kind of alerts. It might have been slide 12. Jose, can you just talk through this one more time? It looks like we have some questions on different phones and versions.
Sure. So we always encourage everybody to, first of all, update your phone to the latest operating system, regardless of what phone you may share. So, and we also want to encourage everybody that if you have downloaded the MyShake app, and that's been 2-3 years ago, verify that it has been updated automatically in the background. Because we do see that a lot of times that somebody will say, hey, I downloaded the MyShake app 3 years ago, but I didn't receive an alert. What happened? We actually often find out that people end up not realizing that they had removed it due to memory issues with their phones. And at times, if you've never opened it in the last 3 years, sometimes phones will automatically remove and offload apps that have been downloaded to your phone. So we ask everybody to make sure that they just click on the MyShake app, make sure that they turn it on every once in a while. I personally leave mine running in the background at all times. It does not affect your battery any more than any of the other 30 apps that you have open in your phone at any given time. We also always ask people to make sure that they verify their settings, not only for the MyShake app, but also for your phones. As I've already covered, oftentimes we, every once in a while, we'll get an alert in the middle of the night for something that we found, oh man, that woke me up. And people will, subconsciously just disable that particular alert. You want to make sure that all of your phones have that enabled. You never know when the next event is going to happen. And so it's important to make sure that the configuration of your settings for not only the app, but also for your alerts is current and activated.
Great. Thank you, Jose. And we're getting questions about resources to run drills individually or with families or with organizations. And I'll just point you back to, thank you, Chris, the MyShake the Great Shakeout toolkit, which is at shakeout.org, shakeout.org. Let's see, a quick question here on from one of our participants about taking the Listos logo off of materials. As much as we would appreciate you keeping it there, they are technically public resources. Always welcome to add other logos and things onto what we're doing, as long as the content doesn't materially change. We work with a lot of different team members, folks like Jose, subject matter experts, to make sure that we've got, that sort of on point. But you're welcome to take and use our content, all publicly funded, and we want to make sure to get that out as much as we can. Let's see, another specific question, and I'll give you, I think we've got 2 more after this. But Jose, another very specific one. So imagine you have an area that's, spotty cell service. Maybe you might be connected to satellite. What if Wi-Fi isn't working? At my home, maybe I have to use Wi-Fi, to make sort of calls. How does that interact with the MyShake app? That connectivity sort of moment.
So we do need connectivity. But as long as you have the internet in some fashion, whether that's through your cell provider or through your home internet, you will receive the alert on your phone. So this app actually will work with just the pure data part of it all. But if you have no data connected, obviously we have no way to deliver an alert to you. But it's kind of irrelevant whether you're using your cell provider or your home internet. The alert will get there.
Great. Thank you, Jose. And then can you tell us more about sort of school participation in the Great Shakeout? Is that typical?
Yeah, we do see a lot of the Southern California school districts actually actively participate in the in the Great California Shakeout. It's actually part of their ongoing evacuation drills, fire drills, and earthquake drills plan that they have for, at the very least, LA Unified School District as a big participant of it. And so we see that a lot, and we always encourage all our schools to make sure that they practice this very important action.
Great, thank you, Jose. And I'll go ahead and try to read this to the best of my ability, but note, I'm still practicing my Spanish, and then maybe if you could help us just. Okay, great, thank you. I don't know if you could see the chat, so I was like, whoa.
I'll translate. I'd like to share a problem that we have here in the county of Merced. In order to register to receive the alerts, it's necessary to have an email. And my area is rural, and not everybody has an email. Can we eliminate that requirement? And maybe only have a requirement to input a phone number. We will look into that. I'll answer it in English, then I'll answer it in Spanish. We can look into that. We understand that everybody has active email addresses, and so we are actively looking for a way to get around that, but we will look into that. Sí sabemos que hay personas que no tienen acceso al correo electrónico o a veces hasta un celular. Estamos buscando formas de poder darle acceso a la aplicación sin usar un correo electrónico. Vamos a fijarnos, vamos a hablar con nuestros socios de ello y le regresamos una respuesta con Sonya y su equipo.
Wonderful.
I added a little piece that we'll get back to Sonya on it, and then she can kind of push that out.
Perfect. I love it. I feel like I can pick up words here and there, but you know, we'll formulate sentence formulation, not there yet. And it looks like we also have one last question. Marlo, you have on sort of what different tools and items are available for you as a Listos grantee specifically. So just knowing we've got sort of a broader audience here, I'll just go ahead and ask you, I'll ask the team to follow up with you directly. If you don't mind just dropping the name of your organization back in the Q&A, we'll just go ahead and follow up with you directly. Well, it looks like, Jose, we've answered a lot of the questions for today. Again, you know, as we started at the top, super appreciate you all being here. I know, you know, thoughts and prayers are with many of, you know, the families that are in Florida and experiencing, you know, I think an incredible event. You know, very much appreciate the leadership of the governor and our director, Nancy Ward at Cal OES. We have, through the mutual aid system, you know, sent swift water rescue folks, pre-positioned, you know, California support. You know, we've worked with utility folks like PG&E to send people in advance of the storm so that they can be out there providing, you know, to the millions that are without power. I imagine you haven't seen the latest reporting, but just again, if you've got family, if you're volunteering, just thank you for stepping up in these moments and hope everyone is safe. And last but not least, thank you so much for being a partner to Listos California. We know your time is so valuable, but to be here to learn from folks like Jose and other subject matter experts and to learn about some of the resources that you can take and use as freely and liberally as you can, please, you know, really to help us hopefully keep Californians safer and make sure those that we love and our friends and neighbors are safe as well, you know, in these moments that we can't predict, but can certainly be a little more prepared for. So I hope everyone has a great week, and thanks for all you do, and good luck, and sign up for the Great Shakeout on October 17th. Take care, everyone.